Mary me, Annie here. I've had a couple of different experiences recently where friends have been thinking back over their family lives and their relatives and their mothers and grandmothers and fathers and grandfathers, thinking back over the heritage of who they are spiritually. In lots of cases, like myself, having moved away from the religion of their family, that's not an easy thing to do. We don't really, except for those moments when we are young, we want to be different than. We don't want to step away from those we love. We're not challenging them, we're not disrespecting them, and we hope to continue to hold their respect as we move off into a new spiritual path. And it's very tricky. But in the process of that, one of the beautiful things that we discover is witches are amongst us. We think of things that, in my case, my grandfather, who had Irish heritage, would tell stories about the way the stars danced across the night sky, and he loved the fairies, and fairy rings were his most favorite thing in the world. He would go out and stand in the middle of them. He didn't know why, he didn't know what the history of the lore was, but he knew what he'd been told by his parents when he was being raised, and he was very mystical. And he was a Baptist, a very mystical, fairy-loving Baptist. And those of us who are on this path, we get to a point in our life when we look back over the length of our heritage, our parents and our grandparents, and we see the things in our families that were beautiful and magical about the things that they did. It may be some of their superstitions, it may be their skill in healing or herbs. The way the women in the family created food and made an offering of it. We look back over the history of our families and we realize that no matter what we call ourselves, we can see bits of what we recognize as the old ways in the history of our families and in those we love. We can't really say to them, "Oof, you may have a problem with the fact that I'm a witch, but here's what you do," and I would call that witch-like. It doesn't work that way. But we can appreciate that there is this energy that flows through the length of our family lines. And very rarely do we have a family where there isn't some repeating superstition or tradition or belief that we don't recognize as a modern pagan as the old ways moving forward through our family line. It just happens to be that there's been a couple of times recently when women have been sharing that their mothers or their grandmothers did such beautifully witchy things. And mom and grandmom were not pagan in any formal sense. They were usually part of a formal Christian tradition in these stories that have been shared with me. And there's great beauty in the connection we can feel when we look at some of these behaviors that our mothers and our grandmothers in this example had. And we realize that we're connecting to that, but we're also connecting to it at a spiritual level, and we are seeking the spiritual roots of it. And it's part of the beauty of what we do. It's also great comfort as we move through our life different from our families to think back over the things that we have in common with our family. Love is usually that bond that connects us. It's the thing that we feel like those of us who, for instance, for most of my adult life, I still celebrated Christmas. Why? Because my mom and my grandmom celebrated Christmas. Big to do with the tree and the house and the gathering of the family, and whenever I would at that point in the year. And I'm not talking about saying, oh, this is Yule. I'm talking my Yule is separated out as the holiday that's one of the 8 for me, and Christmas was a holiday at which I celebrated the tradition of love and ingathering. It was part of my family traditions. Very important thing. It connected me to the women in my line, the women who came before me. Family recipes that are passed down, superstitions, the knock on wood, or the things that we do with tossing the salt over our shoulder, any of the things that our moms and our grandmoms, our dads and our granddads did, they connect us to this flow of we're maybe not so different. Yes, our family can definitely announce that we are different. In fact, sometimes we're too different for their taste. But there's something about most of us are the result of a flow of energy in our line that brought us to this place. Over the years, I've met people who've come to this path who weren't with families who practice any form of the path before, and they're definitely in new frontiers. When they settle into their path and quietly look back over the line that came before them, they can have a sense, when they connect to many of these things that are in the histories of our families, that they are not so much an aberration, but a flow of the energy, almost a maturing of this underlying energy that's been part of their family. I think when that happens, we're able to, from our end, tolerate, let's say, the things about our family that irritate us, what we might see as their short-sightedness or even their prejudice. We're able to deal with it differently when we feel the flow of energy that came from our forebears to us. Several people in videos recently have said, as we all have, I think at one time or another, that when we found our way here, where we are now, we felt like we were coming home. And I just want to share in this video that the coming home is actually an acknowledgement of home that is our heritage. The ancient home of our families, the ancient root of our families, the ancient knowing of our families, and indeed when we are in a place that we can look objectively at our families, no matter the travails and the problems and the challenges we have with them, we can feel the energy that moved through them and that we are an extension of as we go into our exploration, our way forward, celebrating the old ways and being connected to them in the here and the now. So I'm suggesting to those of you who are on the path and thinking that you are the aberration in your family, the odd one out, and indeed your family could consider you that, I'm putting a challenge out there in this quiet time of year when we think of ancestors and those who have gone before. Think back over your family, your extended family, not just your mom and your dad, but your aunts and uncles, grandparents, if you're lucky enough to have known your great-grandparents, even the stories you know that have been handed down through your family. Think of the energy of your family that has moved forward. Is it an energy of love? I know we will not all have good memories of our family, near or expanded, but I challenge most of us to find the outliers in our families. Those who were different, those who had a quirk. Think of the superstitions of your family. Think of the heritage of your family when it came to the relationship to the land. We can't usually have a family of farmers that we don't know that there's a deep, passionate spiritual bond to the land. Women or men in our family who were healers or dowsers, or those that just had the personality that the family gathered around, and think of what the energy was and think of what moved through the generations of your family. You are a continuation of that energy, and part of arriving at your own place of spiritual maturation is acknowledging what of you is history, what of you is time, what came to you, what will move on from you. That's what I was led to think about with these videos I have been seeing recently, that we come to this new way, and then we think about things that we know that our family said or did, the energy in our family, no matter what their professed religion is. We are indeed part of a flow, and it is a good exercise in the quiet time of the year to be with the flow and feel what came to us. Yes, we're deciding what we will take on of that flow, what we will take into our future, what direction our personal flow is going to take. I love a woman's chant that some of you will know. Often when I have been in new groups that use this chant, the women will not be pagan, they'll be women coming together to sing. The song is Who Are the Witches? And let me see if I can remember it. I always have trouble with this particular tune, but I love this because my grandmothers, neither of whom would have felt complimented at the term, were powerful, powerful witches. Who are the witches? Where did they come from? Maybe your great-great-grandmother was one. Witches were wise, wise women, they say. There's a little witch in every woman today. maybe your great-great-grandmother was one. I wish you mirth and reverence. Merry part.